with Jesus' baptism, and we heard the words, "You are my son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased." And it is the same message that he hears, that we hear, as Jesus goes to the mountaintop with the disciples, and he is transfigured. God reveals God's self in many ways. That was the whole thing of the Epiphany. We began with the birth of Jesus as God was revealed to us as a baby. And then we've discovered throughout these last weeks how God has continued to reveal God's self. And one of the ways that God has revealed God's self in Michigan for several years now is through the Michigan Gathering. And so these 6 young people, along with 4 others, a couple from other churches, joined 600 or so youth in Lansing between Christmas break. And our theme this year was love one another. And the idea was that in worship, in singing, in small groups, in skill shops, in Gaga Ball, in everything that we do, God is revealed. And so we talked about what it meant to have the love of God and to feel that love of God, to love ourselves because God has made us exactly as we are called to be, and how we are called to love one another. And so I'd like to invite Bob to share a little bit with our service project. Our service project this year, similar to last year, was to go to a nursing home.
Good morning. As Pastor said, we went to an assisted living home this year, which we did last year. We've done at camp. We've done various times. And we choose that because it's a way of us to share and us to get some growth back. But we went to the assisted living home, and we started out, the kids were quiet. I know, shocking, but they were quiet. But it didn't take them long to warm up. One of the things they do is they played games. A couple of our youth learned a new card game, right, Jack? Amazingly enough, they did not know what 52 card pickup was. And what's more amazing, I don't know who was the second person, didn't catch on after the first game of 52 card pickup.
Still Jack.
Was it still Jack? Okay. I didn't want to point that out, Jack. Pastor told me.
No, Jake did.
So then we played songs, we talked, we painted nails. I didn't paint any nails, the girls did. But you did not paint my nails. They wanted to. But one of the things, the beauty of it is the interaction with our youth and our more seasoned members of our world today. And in the process, I got to talk to this person. Her name was Millie. And she shared her story with me that in her mind, she was dropped off just before Christmas at the nursing home. Her husband had passed away just recently. Her kids had decided that she couldn't take care of herself and dropped her off at the nursing home. She felt abandoned. And none of them came to visit at Christmas time. And we're coming right after Christmas time. So she was really, really low. She was really distraught. She was not feeling loved. And sometimes we get one side of the story. I've confirmed some of it with some of the staff there. She wasn't visited at Christmas time. So our visit was her Christmas time visit. And just listening to her story, she got to tell stuff that was weighing on her very heavily. And I got to talk to her a little bit about God's love. She got to sing with the kids. She just had a really good time. One of the things we got at Gathering was those little rubber bands or bracelets you see, and it said love. And I told the kids going in, I said, bring them with you. You know, you might feel compelled to give those out. Well, I really wanted to give Millie a bracelet to remind her that God loves her and that there's people out there that love her. But I had given my bracelet away. And so I went to Brittany because I figured as my daughter, I can compel her to give me her bracelet but she had already given hers away. And so I kind of worked my way through a couple of the kids, and Nikki still had hers. And Nikki was more than willing to give her bracelet up. So I took it over and I gave this to Millie, and you would have thought I gave her a solid gold bracelet. Her eyes lit up. She gave me a hug. She said it was the best Christmas gift she ever got because it reminded her of God's love. And it would remind her every time she wore it. She put it right on, and she just was having a really good time. She was talking with her kids. She had some visitors come from her congregation while we were there. She insisted that they come over and join us. She wasn't ready to go back yet. She wanted to stay and talk with us and sing with us. So my point in telling you this is you never know who your neighbor is, but everybody's your neighbor. You never know what life you're going to touch. We never envisioned that we'd go down there and touch somebody's life so much. But in turn, she's touched my life because I feel compelled. I'm still sending cards to Millie to let her know that there's people out there that love her. And our kids, that's all they talked about, and you probably heard it, is one of the highlights of the gathering, amongst all the fun times they had, all the songs and everything they sung, was going to this retirement home. So just sharing God's love a little bit, you never know what you're going to get back, but I guarantee you'll probably get back more than you give. So love will conquer all.
As Bob shared, love changes everything. Through the death, resurrection of Jesus Christ, love changes us and changes those we come in contact with. We are all saints and sinners, but God changes us all.
The baseball game was coming to a close. There's one out with a single player on second base. This player, however, is perhaps one of the worst players on the team. Despite this fact, the team may have a chance as the team's best player steps up to home plate. The coach stands on third base, signaling to her what she should do. Anticipation among the crowd is very high. The ball is pitched. The best player, who could easily hit the ball out of the park and win the game, bunts the ball. It bounces toward the pitcher. The other players on her team and her admirers in the stand were outraged. They began to taunt the player and question why such a good player would give up a great opportunity during a critical point in the game. The opposing team was so excited to get the best player out of the game that they forgot about the terrible player, who is now rounding third and coming home. In baseball, that play is called a sacrifice. So much attention was on the good player that the enemy team forgot to... I messed up. Oh, that's called a sacrifice, where you give up something in yours for the benefit of the greater good. And God called a play with God's best player, who was Jesus. He bunted the ball and gave himself up to a cross. So much attention was on Jesus that the opposing team did not realize that a poor player like humanity was now rounding third. They mocked and taunted Jesus on the cross, but the cross could not hold him. The grave could not hold him. He rose from the dead and gave us an opportunity to slide home and win our game. This is the sacrifice Jesus made for us, and what a sacrifice it was.
When Jesus died and rose again, it was because of God's love for humanity. And nothing that we do, absolutely nothing, cannot, succumb to God's love. God's love will always prevail. The love of Jesus is always with us. And God loves us so much that he died and rose for us.
So I was trying to figure out how I could get my point across for my sermon. And I will be honest, I did go online to get some inspiration. And I found some really cool stories, but one stood out to me more than the others. It was a story written by President Dieter F. Uchtdorf. You're probably wondering, who is he? Or at least I know I was. So I looked him up. He was second counselor in the first presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on February 3rd, 2008. He was sustained as a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church on October 2nd, 2004. He has served as a general authority since April in 1994. Now, Dieter took a trip on a ship, rhyme not intended, to the coast of Alaska. He states while the captain prepared for the ship's overnight stay in a remote, pristine bay, he carefully evaluated the location and circumstances, such as the sequences of the tides, the depth of the waters, and so on. When the captain was satisfied, he dropped the anchor so that the ship would remain safe and firmly anchored, allowing the passengers an opportunity to marvel at the beauty of God's work. Now, Dieter states that he was looking at the coastline and started to realize that they were drifting because of the wind, even if it was just a small amount of wind. But nonetheless, The ship stayed firmly within a small fixed circle defined by the length of the anchor line and the strength of the anchor. The captain had not kept the anchor stored on the ship ready to be lowered only if a storm should approach. No. He had anchored the vessel as a preventative measure and protected the ship from moving into unsafe waters or slowly drifting around while passengers and crew could feel safe. The very definition of an anchor is this: a heavy object attached to a rope or chain and used to moor a vessel to the sea bottom, typically having a metal shank with a ring at one end for the rope and a pair of curved and or barbed flukes at the other. So, the purpose of an anchor is to keep a ship safe and secure at a desired location or to help control the ship during bad weather. However, to accomplish these vital purposes, just having the anchor is not enough. The anchor must be solid, dependable, and used properly at the right time and place. But guess what? We all need anchors. Adversity can come as a great storm to blow us off course. Like that. And it will threaten to cast us against the rocks. But sometimes we are also in danger when everything appears to be safe. The wind's soft and the water's smooth. In fact, we can be in the greatest danger when we are drifting and movement is so slight that we scarcely notice it. Anchors must be solid, strong, and well-maintained to be ready when needed. In addition, they must be attached to a foundation capable of bearing the weight of opposing forces. Of course, the love of Jesus Christ is such an anchor. Like Bozo, we get knocked down. But the question is, why does he come right back up? Why do we come right back up? Because Bozo is weighted down by an anchor, just as we are. God's love is our anchor. It doesn't matter what may knock us down. If we have faith and trust in God, he will be our anchor.
Change isn't easy. In fact, most of us, if we talked about change, it would be okay if we got to choose what was changed and when it was changed. But God has a way of knowing what needs to be changed, even if we think it's just fine. Living in the love of God, which includes loving ourselves and loving others, changes us. And it isn't always easy. But God knows better than we do what needs to be chiseled away.